Kelly, now Editor-at-Large at The Australian. Paul, thanks as always. On the Ensuring Integrity Bill, your piece in The Australian yesterday made the point very clearly that this was not just an issue of policy, but it's an issue of politics and how the government was blindsided by the crossbench. This was a really nasty surprise for the Morrison government towards the end of the year. Pauline Hanson has pulled the IR rug from under the Morrison government. The word betrayal in private was the accusation being made by senior government figures against Hanson at the end of the week. The public comments from Matthias Cormann and Christian Porter made it very clear the government believed that it had an understanding with Hanson. They'd negotiated with her for many weeks. They'd accepted all her amendments. The voting in the Senate seemed to be going smoothly until the final vote. Cormann would not have put this bill unless he expected it to get up. So there's no doubt that this has cast a deep shadow over this government industrial relations policy. In power terms, it's a great win for the construction union and for John Sitka. The really interesting thing is that Pauline Hanson had very extensive talks with the trade unions. Perhaps she's decided, in the context of the Queensland election, that her supporters in Queensland hate banks more than they hate the construction union. But there's no doubt this has been a big deal. The government will bring this issue back to the Parliament, but it won't necessarily be easy to get this vote reversed. On another matter, deferring the religious discrimination bill to next year, Paul, what do you make of this and the demands from religious groups for more certainty, for more clarity on how they're going to be dealt with? This is a very difficult issue for the attorney Christian Porter because, as he's pointed out, it's about competing rights. Now, he's had enormously extensive consultations with people. We've got a draft bill. He's made some changes to the draft bill. But what's happened is that a number of the religious groups, people of faith, are concerned about the legislation. I think the decision by the Prime Minister to defer it to next year is the right decision. This needs more work. But at the end of the day, this bill will have to be a compromise. You can't avoid that issue, and so you can't satisfy everybody. Having said that, I don't think anyone should have any doubts about the determination of Scott Morrison as Prime Minister to continue with this bill. Yep, indeed. And others like Matt Canavan, who we spoke to this morning, very strong in their support of him in doing exactly that. Finally, it was such a difficult week for the government on a number of respects. First, we mentioned the IR issue, also the Taylor distraction. So the government will be hoping in this final sitting week of the year to finish on a high, to get the Medevac repeal through the Parliament. Well, the Medevac bill is again a tricky one. It seems as though Jackie Lambie is the key figure here. She's made some demand on the government, which she says must be met in terms of her support for the bill. I don't believe the government will make any major concession on this issue. It sees this bill that it wants to repeal as a question of border protection and national security. So Peter Dutton and the Prime Minister won't easily roll over on this question. Morrison himself has got involved in the negotiations on this, which is a sign that the government is very keen to win on this, to get the bill repealed. But I think at the end of the day, there's also this sentiment in the government that this could be a win-win for it, because if the bill is repealed, well, that's obviously a victory. If it's not repealed, then it can simply say, well, the Labor Party, the Greens and the Independents remain committed to a soft border protection policy in which the Australian government is not in effective control of the borders. Yep, so a win either way, as you say. Paul Kelly, as always, thanks. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Kieran.